All right, let's just get right into it. If you're nearing the end of your degree, I bet you're hearing one question on repeat, right? So, what's next? It's a lot. Well, today we're going to tackle that question, but not with some stuffy, rigid plan. Instead, we're going to borrow a creative toolkit from the designers over at Stanford's Design Lab. We're talking about how to design your life.
Yeah, it's such a loaded question, isn't it? It is totally normal to feel this mix of excitement and, let's be real, a whole lot of, what am I doing? The pressure to have everything figured out is just immense. But here's a thought. What if that whole idea of figuring it all out is actually the problem?
You know the drill. We're told we have to find our one true passion and then map out this perfect 10-year plan. But honestly, that advice is built on some pretty shaky myths. Myths that can do more harm than good. So let's start by busting the biggest one right now.
Okay, so this whole follow your passion thing, it kind of assumes you have just one single passion, right? Like it's hiding under a rock somewhere. But get this, research from Stanford found that for over 80% of people, that's just not how it works. Most of us have lots of interests, lots of curiosities. So a strategy that only works for a tiny fraction of the population, well, that's not a great strategy, is it?
So the designers behind this, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, they call these dysfunctional beliefs. You know, that feeling that you're already late to the game or that you have to find the one single best version of yourself. It just creates so much stress we don't need. And this is the key, the big reframe. There isn't one best life waiting for you. The truth is, there are many amazing, totally possible, wonderful lives you could live.
So if the whole perfect plan thing is out, then what's in? Well, the answer is to stop thinking like you're writing a report and start thinking like a designer. You don't need a flawless blueprint. What you need is a creative process to start building your way forward, one step at a time.
You've probably heard of design thinking, right? It's this method people use to invent all sorts of stuff, from new apps to cool services. At its core, it's about being empathetic, brainstorming a ton of ideas, and then, crucially, trying them out. So we're just going to take that exact same process and point it at the biggest, most complex problem of all, how to build a joyful life that actually feels like you.
Now to do this, we need to get into the right headspace. We need to adopt 5 key mindsets. First, be curious, like genuinely curious about everything. Second, have a bias to action. This just means try stuff. Don't get stuck in your head, just do something. Third, reframe problems so you're not trying to solve the wrong thing. Fourth, be mindful of the process, trust it. And last, radical collaboration. Basically ask for help, because the best stuff almost always comes from talking to other people.
Okay, before we start building, we need to know what direction we're headed. So the very first step in designing your life is to figure out your own personal compass. What actually matters to you? This is going to be your North Star for all the decisions that come next.
And we get there with 2 really simple little exercises. First, you're going to write what's called a work view. It's just a short reflection on what work is for and what makes it meaningful to you. Then you do the same for a life view. What gives your life meaning? Big picture. The whole point is to see where they connect, to make sure who you are and what you do are actually in sync.
Now, a really important part of this compass work is knowing what you can't change. The designers call these gravity problems. Think about it, right? You can't fight gravity. It's just there. It could be a family obligation, the economic situation, whatever. The key is to not waste your energy fighting it. You just accept it as part of the landscape and then figure out how to design around it. No point trying to solve a problem that isn't solvable.
All right, this is my favorite part. This is where we get to be really creative. Once you've got your compass pointed in the right direction, it's time to brainstorm. But we're not just going to come up with one plan. Nope. We're going to design 3 completely different 5-year plans for your future.
So life number 1 is pretty straightforward. It's your current plan. You know, that path you're already on, the jobs you're looking at. Just take that idea and flesh it out. Imagine the next 5 years go amazing. Oh, and make sure to sprinkle in some fun stuff too, like that trip you've wanted to take or that language you want to learn.
Okay, now for life number 2. This is the pivot. Imagine that first plan just disappears. Poof. That industry is gone, the jobs don't exist anymore. What do you do then? This one is designed to force you to look at your other skills, your other interests. Maybe it's that side hustle idea you've been kicking around or a totally different career you've secretly been curious about.
And life number 3, this is the wild card, the what-if plan. What would you do if money was no object and you didn't care one bit about what other people thought? Seriously, would you move to Bali and open a surf shack? Would you become a professional baker? This is where you let your imagination run completely wild, no limits.
Now, this is super important. The point of this exercise is not to pick one of these lives right now. It's to show you that you have multiple amazing futures inside of you. A lot of the time, the stuff that comes up in life 2 and life 3 are passions you've kind of forgotten about. The real goal is to look at all 3 and ask, hey, what's a little piece of this I can bring into my life right now?
Okay, so you've got these amazing ideas bubbling up, but you don't just quit everything and move to Bali, right? That's not how designers work. Designers don't just guess, they build prototypes. So we need to do the same. We need to run some small, low-risk experiments to actually test out what these lives might feel like.
And there are basically 2 flavors of prototypes you can build. The first is a conversation prototype. Super simple. You just find someone who's already doing that thing you're curious about, and you ask them to tell you their story. The second is an experience prototype. This is where you create a little hands-on test so you can see what it actually feels like to do that thing.
And the best part? These experiments can be tiny. You don't need a massive commitment. Like, are you curious about the tech world? Find a weekend hackathon to join. Think you might like writing? Start a super niche little newsletter. Want to learn a new skill? Just sign up for one module of an online course. These are just small bets that give you real information about what you actually enjoy.
So after all this exploring and testing things out, you're eventually going to get to a point where you have to make a choice. And that can feel paralyzing, right? So how do you actually make a good choice without freaking out? Let's get into that.
Let's talk about FOMO, fear of missing out. It's a real thing, especially at this stage of life. We are terrified of closing doors. But here's something wild from research at Harvard. It turns out that when we make a decision and we can't go back on it, our satisfaction with that choice goes way, way up. So actually choosing a path and really committing to it, that's a huge part of being happy.
So if you remember just one thing from all this, let it be this simple mantra. Designing your life is not about having a perfect map. It's about getting into a simple loop. Be curious, talk to people, try stuff. That's it. That's the whole game. Look, this isn't just some abstract idea. It's a call to action. You do not need to figure out the next 5 years of your life tonight. All you need to do is figure out the very next small step. So my question for you is, what's your first prototype? What is one tiny thing you can try this week to start building your way forward?